Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel Cakes by MK. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make a really cool pull me up cake. If you're new to my channel, please click the subscribe button below and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that you're updated whenever I upload a new video. Apart from that, stay tuned and I hope you guys enjoy this video. Now, when it comes to making a pull-me-up cake, in terms of the cake flavor and, icings and fillings and all of that stuff that you want to stack your cake with, that can be completely up to you. So you can do whatever kind of flavors and fillings that you like. But one thing that is consistent amongst all pull-me-up cakes is that beautiful chocolate ganache which goes right on the top of your cake, which, then creates that beautiful flowy effect when you pull your acetate sheet off. So what I'm going to be doing first is I'm going to be showing you guys how to make that chocolate ganache which you put right on top of your cake. Now, a chocolate ganache is basically heavy cream and chocolate which are melted together. Now, whether you're making a white chocolate ganache or a dark chocolate ganache, the ratios are slightly different, so just keep that in mind. But basically, if you're making a white chocolate ganache, the ratio is 3 parts chocolate to 1 part heavy cream, whereas if you're making a dark chocolate ganache, the ratio is equal parts, so 1 part chocolate to 1 part heavy cream. Now today I'm going to be making a dark chocolate ganache for the top of my cake, which is going to be a chocolate cake. So what I've got here is I've got 50% dark chocolate and some heavy cream. And what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to warm up my cream until it starts to bubble around the edges. And then I'm just simply going to pour that over my little chocolate pieces which I've cut up. Now to get a really nice, smooth, silky chocolate ganache, just make sure that you have cut up your chocolate into, really small pieces so that it melts really nice and evenly. Now once the heavy cream just starts to kind of simmer around the edges, I'm simply just going to take it off the heat and pour it over my dark chocolate. Now what you want to do next is you just want to let this sit for about 5 minutes or so to allow the chocolate some time to melt, and then we'll be back to stir it through and then you should be left with a beautiful silky chocolate ganache. So my heavy cream and dark chocolate have been sitting for about 5 minutes now, so I'm going to go ahead and start stirring it together. Now once the ganache has nicely come together, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop it aside to give it some time to cool down and thicken up a little bit while we go ahead and start stacking our cake. So the different elements that I'm going to be using to make my cake, which I will also have the recipes to below, is chocolate cake. So I've got 3 layers of 6-inch chocolate cake. I've got some mascarpone whipped cream, which I'm going to be using as my icing. Then I've also got some freshly cut strawberries, which I'm going to be putting in between each cake layer. And then I've also got some extra cocoa, which I'm going to be dusting right on the top of my pull-me-up cake. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to start stacking my cake layers on this cake board that I've got here. And then once I finish stacking my cake layers, that's when I'll come and start wrapping my acetate sheet. But I'll get to that once I finish stacking my cake layers. So I'm just starting off with a little bit of the mascarpone whipped cream to secure my cake to my cake board. Then I'm going in with my first layer of cake. Now I'm just piping a rim of the mascarpone whipped cream around the edge of the chocolate cake. Just going to put some in the middle as well. And then I'm going to put some of the freshly cut strawberries in the middle. And then I'm just basically going to repeat the same steps with the other 2 cake layers. Now once you finish stacking your cake, the next thing to do is to wrap a piece of acetate sheet around the edge of the cake. Now you do want to make sure that your acetate sheet is quite high because we are going to be putting quite a thick layer of chocolate ganache on the top of this cake. So the one that I've got here is about, I think, 8.5 inches high, and I'm simply just going to wrap it around the cake and secure it together with a piece of sellotape. Now once the acetate sheet is nicely secured around the edge of the cake, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get some more of my mascarpone whipped cream and I'm going to spread it across the top of my cake so that it hits the edges of the acetate sheet. Now the reason for that is because there may be little kind of holes on the edges of the acetate sheet, and you want to cover those up just so that when you put your chocolate ganache on the top, it doesn't kind of seep down the edges of the cake. You can even pipe a nice rim around the edge, but I kind of ran out of my whipped cream, so I'm just using a knife to spread it out. Now once that's all nicely smoothed out, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put my chocolate ganache on the top of my cake. So the chocolate ganache that I made earlier has had some time to cool down now, and the consistency here is key. So you don't want your chocolate ganache to be too thick that it's not going to run down the sides of your cake nicely, but you don't want it to be too thin either that it's just gonna kind of just fall off your cake without nicely covering it in this kind of thick coat of chocolate ganache. So as you can see, mine is, it's thin enough that it's kind of running off my spoon, but it's not too thin that it's still coating my spoon when it's kind of coming off it. So that's the kind of consistency that you want. Now what I'm going to do is I'm simply just going to pour all this chocolate ganache on the top of my cake now. And you do want quite a thick layer, so I'm probably going to go up until about there. Okay, so all of my chocolate ganache is on the top now, and now I'm just going to finish off by dusting some cocoa on the top of my cake. Now I'm just cleaning the bottom of my cake board. Now just to finish off, just to make it a little bit more fancy, and if you're gifting it to someone, then it's a nice little touch as well, is I'm just going to be wrapping a ribbon around the middle of the cake. And there it is, my pull me up cake is all done, and now we're going to move on to the next part, which is the best part, which is pulling up the acetate sheet. Now a few things to keep in mind with this is, one, you want to place your cake onto a slightly larger kind of plate or tray or something maybe that's kind of got a slight rim on the edge, just because it's going to catch any of that excess ganache which might kind of fall off the edges of your cake board. And two is that you want to kind of, pull up your acetate sheet pretty soon. So, an hour or so will be fine to leave your cake like this, but just keep in mind that the longer you keep your ganache sitting, the thicker it's going to become. So if you leave it overnight, then your ganache is going to be really thick the next day, and so when you pull up your acetate sheet, it's not going to have that nice flowy effect that you want. So that's the only thing when making a pull me up cake, is that you do kind of have to make it pretty close to when you are going to be kind of doing the pull me up reveal, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, let's move on to pulling up the acetate sheet. So I've just pulled out my acetate sheet and oh my gosh, that is a lot of chocolate ganache. So if you don't want that much chocolate ganache, you can use less than what I did, or just let your ganache cool down for a little bit longer so that it's not so thin. So it'll kind of be slightly thicker over your cake. But as you can see, the cake is beautifully covered in this yummy chocolate ganache, and now we're going to cut through the cake and see what it looks like. Okay, so you can see the strawberries there in the middle with the mascarpone whipped cream, and it just looks absolutely delicious. I cannot wait to dig in. But apart from that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this, and thanks again for watching Cakes by MK.